Shall we You read my mind, Jack. You read my mind. You're becoming kind of like, already developing all of these seeds. You're already reading my mind. Very good. We're so happy we're here together. So good to be here. I wish I was there with you guys, but soon I hope we will be there, having the conditions to be there again, and then we can have fun and go to eat pad thai and green curry, all of these things. So for those that are new, you guys are gonna come on the new generation of food. So I this time is only about pad thai. I'm a foodie, so I'm only talk about food. Okay, so just guys to know. So it's gonna be all about pad thais and green curries, not anymore burritos. Okay, so burrito is last year. Okay, so not this year. This year is pad thai year. Okay, so we got to talk about it. So for you guys that are new, just first thing, very important, and not only to them, is to remind all of you, don't believe in anything I say. Okay, I don't know anything, so I'm just here like a parrot doing blah blah blah. So I don't know anything. But if you do want to listen to anything that I'm saying, just try to bring it to your own experience and your own mind. Okay, really try to bring it as an experience, as a possibility, as I like to say. It's kind of like it's an assumption. It's like okay, this is my methodology that I'm gonna try to work with my own mind, and I'm gonna try to use what Kalden is saying to see if it works. So then you try, you kind of like, you analyze, investigate, you really try to use it your own inner wisdom to make sure that what I'm saying makes sense to you and it can be helpful in your own life. And if it works, then you continue practicing. If not, just throw away, garbage, boom, like that. No problem at all. Okay? But then it means that whatever I'm saying is not going to be only my responsibility, but it's going to be our co-creation. Okay? We're going to co-create together this class. It means that whatever we're going to say, I'm going to talk about it. And today we're going to talk about something that is very special, which is something that I have no idea. So I'm just going to be here like a parrot, but it's something that is very important to us because we have been discussing during these classes many different things, okay? And especially we've been talking about the mind and the importance of the mind in creating our happy experiences, right? Our experiences of happiness, but also how the mind creates our experiences of suffering, right? Because if we just look into our lives, we are very fortunate, extremely fortunate, if we actually have to say, because we have all the material conditions. None of us are starving today. None of us are like, thirsty today. None of us is like, too hot or too cold. We have a lot of kind of like material wealth in some ways. Wealth is such a strange concept nowadays because we have people having $100 billion. It's just like that's kind of like we talk about wealth in this way, but like wealth is a state of external wealth. If we think about it, just having the minimum basic needs, okay, we already have it. But the question is, are we happy? Do we feel fulfilled? Do we feel kind of like completely in peace, right? Or we go through our days, our daily lives, coming ups and downs, and then someone says something, and then our minds go like this. Or we don't have raisins for our porridge, and we don't have the coffee with half milk, and we don't have pad thai, and we don't have, and that person says this, and that person says that, and then that someone comes and cuts in front of us when we are going to the center because we're already late, and all of that. So all of these things agitates the mind, isn't it? So that means that even though we might have all the external material kind of like development that we have, the mind is the key. The state of mind is the key for us to be able to have an experience, a completely subjective experience of happiness or suffering. Why? Because even now, in this talk that we're going to do it today, All of you are going to be listening to the same words, but each of you are going to be having a different experience. Some of you are going to be completely bored, and I totally understand. I completely agree. I am a very boring person. And some of you are going to be completely angry, and I also understand, because I have the tendency of insulting people. So probably people are gonna get insulted. But also some of you might have an experience that, oh, okay, that things might make some sense. So that means it is our own minds that are creating our experience, right? Because if it was completely objective, it would mean that everybody would need to have the same experience, and that doesn't happen. So therefore, it's so important for us to not only understand, but be aware and have the tools to develop it and in some ways control our minds in order to go into a direction of happiness and don't go to a direction of suffering. Make sense so far? New people? Yes? No? Yes? Okay. They are the thermometer today, okay? You guys already know all of these, but they are the thermometer. They make sense to them. It should make sense to you, okay? So then we need to then make sure that we are being able to understand that the mind has mainly two mental states, we would say. Mental states that kind of like can create the experience of suffering. Hmm? The mental states like anger, like attachment, like pride. Where's Jason? Like 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 pride, and like kind of like a depression, anxiety, and all of that, right? So those are mental states that have the nature of suffering or discomfort or dissatisfaction. Hmm? And the reason they are called disturbing emotions, I like this translation more than like negative mental states. Disturbing emotions is because first they disturb our peace of mind. Easy to understand, isn't it? When we are under the influence of these minds, very easy to see when we are angry, when we're anxious, when we are depressed, when we are kind of like confused, when we are attached, when all of that, our minds are shaking, our bodies are shaking, everything is shaking. So how can it be peace if we are like this, right? So that is very important for us to start understanding that those mental states, we need to start coming to the conclusion that we don't want them. They are there. They are a part of our lives right now, but they are not needed. They are just like clouds in the sky. They don't harm the kind of like openness and vastness of the sky, the clouds, and they don't open, and they don't kind of like influence or contaminate or kind of like affect the openness and vastness of our own mind. Okay? So that is very important for us to start, and that's what we talk a lot about it. We had a few talks about, how to decrease and how to, let it go of the negative minds, of the attach, of anger, pride, many things we talked about. So because you guys were getting bored of talking about these negative emotions, because none of you know about these, it's just it was a self-talk. I was talking for myself, then I said we're going to start talking about the other types of mental states that we have, positive emotions, right? So the positive emotions that we have, why they're called positive or why they're called qualities, because they create, when we are under their influence or when we have those mental states, that mind, that experience of vastness, of openness, of connection, of warm-hearted. That experience? Yes, do you understand what I'm talking about? When you kind of like go, I always talk about when you go to someone that you like a lot, like a birthday or kind of like, or maybe, a wedding, or, like me, like I just had, like my brother just had a daughter. So now there's a little thing, in the family, a little piece of, little human being. And that kind of like, wow, creates that openness of the mind, that openness, that warm-hearted experience, right? It's very, very, very special. So that means that we also have in our mind mental states that are positive. Therefore, what we need to understand is that how are they working, what are their qualities, how do they kind of like come about, so we can decide if we want to nourish them, right? So it's about having or developing an inner wisdom. The Buddhist path is about that development of this inner wisdom so we can discern. Okay? Discern is a very good and important word in Buddhism, because we talk about with discernment of what? Deciding which mental states we want to develop, we want to increase, we want to nourish, and which ones we want to let it go. Right? That is the main goal. And when we develop these two aspects of developing the negativities, the decreasing the negativities, decreasing the negative or the disturbing emotions from our minds, we start to get a peace, a experience of, letting go of suffering. And the more we nourish and the more we kind of like develop those qualities, we start to have that experience of happiness. And if we think about it, actually, this is the main goal in Buddhism, what we call the state of enlightenment. That's what we are wanting to achieve. So enlightenment is not something that is kind of like you need to go to the top of the mountain in Himalayas and then and then you kind of like meditate and then you have all of these and then you kind of like start to like go up from the floor, floating and flying, not like this, okay? Nothing like that. It's a very kind of like in some ways simple mind, very profound but simple mind, which is a mental state that is free from all the contamination, the disturbing emotions, negative emotions, whatever you want to call them, right? So no more anger, no more problems, no more anxiety, no more, nothing of that. How about that? That sounds already amazing, no? Not having what I call the roller coaster of emotions that we have in our daily lives. That is already incredible. But on the other hand, it's full. So it's not empty like a robot. It's like, okay, so I don't have attachment, then I just go like this and I talk to friends like, not like this, okay? You actually is full of love and compassion and kindness and wish to help others. Yeah? So that is why what we need to start in the Buddhist path is that if we want to have that external result of peace and love and kindness, we need to start within ourselves. Okay? So there's no other way in Buddhist path. That's why the Buddhist, to be a Buddhist, the word Buddhist in Tibetan is a very special concept of called ngangpa, or inner being. It means that differently from nowadays that I go to Instagram and I go to Netflix and I go to kind of like whatever else I go to pad thai and red curries and and all of these things as a source of refuge for finding my happiness and finding my way of not suffer, or I go to drugs, or I go to alcohol, or I go to kind of like controlling, and I go to anxiety and working and becoming and all of these ideas that I identify as external aspects of like really being essential for my own happiness. The Buddhist path is totally different. It doesn't matter all of these external aspects, but it's an internal path. So I will use my own mind to check and to develop the ways to find happiness and to decrease and eliminate completely my suffering. So let's not forget that. I always try to say that the Buddhist path can become a way to really have just a good life, but it can also be a way of total transformation of our own experiences, right? So that is very, very special. And that with that, the most important thing that we need to develop is first what we call an intention. An intention, because if all of us, we have many people here today, 20 people online, and I don't know how many people there in the center, we all have the same wish to fly. No, I'm kidding, not to fly. To have burritos for lunch. That's what we all have, like the same wish, not like this. The same wish what we have is to be free from all the suffering and any suffering that we might experience, and we want to find, as I like to say it, everlasting peaceful happiness. A type of mental state that there is no more need, there's no more that feeling of something is missing, that feeling of dissatisfaction, that feeling of like I'm failing, I did it wrong, or this is not enough, right? That feeling that I always come with the whip, you know, and I'm always beating up myself because something is not kind of like completely perfect. So that feeling or that mind that is kind of like that we are used to in our daily lives, of kind of like the way we talk to ourselves, the way we kind of like reproach ourselves, the way we kind of like criticize others, the way we are always looking for flaws and defects and problems and issues, right? Outside of ourselves and within oneself, that mind completely gone. Okay? So that's what we want. That's what we all woke up to today. Even if you're in the most depressed mode, you didn't wake up saying, I hope I can like suffer today, and kind of like that everything goes wrong and all of that. Not like this. Nobody does that. Even Jack, when he doesn't have his raisins for his porridge, he still wants to kind of like, enjoy his day. It's true. It is true. Okay? So that is very important that we start acknowledging that. So when we talk about intention, it's about that intention that, okay, I am actually waking up to that feeling that that's what I want. And then I want to develop that kind of like myself. I want to use my body, speech, and mind, the time and the external developments that I have in order to transform myself to achieve that state of no more dissatisfaction, no more problems, no more anxiety, no more depression, no more, kind of like flaws, finding flaws or problems when there's no problems, right? And I want to really develop my own mind, my own heart, open myself, being kind of like honest and kind to myself and to others, being like courageous in expressing, my own love. Last week, that's what we talked about, remember? We talked about the difference between love and attachment. And that is very special if we actually can develop more and more our minds towards that understanding of love, of freedom, right? Because love is the wish for myself and others to be happy, isn't it? So that wish to develop that mental state so we can go more and more and more towards developing that. So that's what we need to develop that wish. I want to do this. Instead of just allowing our as I say, the autopilot, allowing the conductor or the kind of like the driver of our minds, which right here and right now, if we check and we are completely honest, is obsessed with just me, myself, and I. That's it. You know? I don't care so much. And I can even think, no, but my kids or my family or my kind of like partner or my this, my mother, my blah, 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 all of that, right? But actually, the mind is still thinking, okay, why, what I can get from it. Hmm? And there's no problem in that. I'm not saying that this is bad, it's just being aware of it. Because the moment we are aware of it, then we can transform it. Then we can use the same situation we are at, whatever it is that we are doing, whatever it is the situation with whoever we are with, we can transform it in that aspect of eliminating, the negative mental, disturbing mental states, and increasing, developing the good qualities. Okay? So that is very important. So we need to really develop that understanding and develop that wish of transformation. So that's what we call the motivation or intention. Because the more we put that into a wish, the more, Lama Yeshe, one of our teachers, over there at the center, if you look to the in front of you is the monk who is on the left hand side. There's the throne, and there is Lama Zopa Rinpoche on the right, and on the left there's Lama Yeshe. And Lama Yeshe used to say, everything is on the tip of a wish. And that is very special if we actually think about it. So we need to make sure that we make the correct wish. So normally, there's all of these movies like Aladdin. I always remember Aladdin. You know, that is the genie kind of like would give the wishes for what you want, right? And I always thought about, someone asked me, like, what would you? And I say, I would like me and others to be free from suffering and achieve happiness. That's what we want. That is our wish. But there's no genie, outside genie, that they can do that for us. We need to develop that ourselves. So the more we develop, guess what? The more we get it. The more we wish for, the more we go towards having the result of it. Very crazy, these kind of like law of a cause and effect, you know? The more I want something, the more I can actually get it if I create the necessary causes and conditions for it to happen. But right now, I want to be happy, but I allow myself to be completely controlled by my negative tendencies, by my negative habits. And then I suffer, and then I say, how come this happened to me? That's how we go, right? It's like we go like, how come this is happening to me? But just because of us. We are creating it. Okay? So that is important, that we understand the power of intention, the power of our own motivation. So we need to be aware of it, and we need to understand the motivation, the autopilot motivation that we have, which is a selfish one, and we want to transform it and say, wait, but being selfish and just thinking about me just makes these negative disturbing emotions to arise more and more, because I get angry if I don't get what I want, because I get attached, to things, clinging to them, believing that they're going to make me happy. But I already have most of the things that I want, and I'm not happy. Therefore, they are cheating us. Okay? So that's why we need to come to the conclusion. And then we need to say, okay, but my mind, I also feel good when I am happy, when I kind of like, when I'm thinking about others, when I am generous, when I'm like helping others, when I'm, wanting others to like helping others to be happy, you know? So therefore, should I kind of like increase my time, my energy, my actions towards that goal? Very easy. Okay, finish class today, gone. That's it. Very easy. That is the idea. But to do that, we need to then really work on our mind. And what really, one of the main things that don't allow us, if I can put it like this, to really find that happiness is what we call, of course, the angry mental state. But not only the anger, but like all the types, the way we deal with those dissatisfactions, those, I don't like the word suffering, but in Buddhism we talk the word suffering, because suffering can look like, what is happening in Gaza or in Ukraine and all of these. And yes, that is a huge suffering. But we are talking more about mental suffering here, right? It's the most type of suffering that we experience on our daily lives. So therefore, it's kind of like that dissatisfaction, that feeling of, yes, of never being enough, not only ourselves, but others and things. So that feeling is what we are trying to kind of like talk about and we want to be able to deal with that feeling, because it's arising all the time. Almost all the time, we hope. Not all the time, but at least 99% of the time. So that feeling is something that we need to deal with. So therefore, a mental state that will help us, a good mental state, a positive mental state that will help us, is what we call the state of patience. Okay? And patience is a virtue, as the saying goes. No, we have that. Patience is a virtue. We say that in English. Yes, Jack?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. We say that. So that's very good. So, yes, you know, patience is a virtue. And as it is a virtue, therefore it is not something that we are very familiar with. And not only that, is an effort for us to actually allow it, isn't it, in our minds? It's very funny, but because we think that because it's a virtue, therefore we kind of like, yes, makes sense. It's like, okay, not smoking makes sense. Not scrolling on my phone and brain rotting myself, all day. It's bad for me. Does it mean we don't do it? Yes. Does it mean I know, even though I know it is something, is a virtue, doesn't mean that I don't, that I can do it. Not really. Why? Because the habits, we are very habituated otherwise. So that is why we need to cultivate, develop. And as one of my teachers put it very, very beautifully, is like, we need to put effort into it. So let's put effort into the right mental states or the right actions of body, speech, and mind that will give us a benefit that is beyond $1 billion. I saw it. I don't know. Someone sent it to me that there is a $1 billion lottery prize in America right now, almost $1 billion. And then the person was like, wow, this is so good. And then I said, yes, we can help so many people. We can do so many things with $1 billion. And the person was like, no, no, no. I was thinking about all the things I was going to buy for myself. So that is the mind, right? That is normally how it goes. So that is very important. That is like, we need to develop the mental states that will give us a result. I used to work in finance. I don't know if people like, I used to work in private equity, and private equity is very similar to Buddhism in one way. We want the best result, so that's what we want. In Buddhism, we want the best result. And the best result is a mind that is free from suffering and is completely happy. So that is what we're going to try to achieve. So therefore, we need to cultivate the minds of virtue, of the virtues mindsets, like patience, right? So patience is like a mind that is really powerful to practice, right? And it doesn't mean, as I like to say, for the new people, normally what I try to do is to explain what patience is not, because right now we have a very strange concepts of patience, right? So for example, we think that patience is just bearing everything, we just tolerate everything. We become a doormat. We just allow everybody to do whatever they want with us. That's how we feel that patience is. Okay, I'm not going to say anything. I just going to do like that, and then, people are just abusing you and all of that and blah, blah, blah. And you are getting angrier, angrier, angrier. And then it's just coming up until you just go and boom, explode. There is zero patience in there. Nothing of that is patience. Okay? So that is very important to understand what patience is not. Patience is not an external repressing your external kind of like behaviors. Means is not saying I'm not screaming, say I'm not punching someone. That is great, but that is not what patience is about in Buddhism. Remember, it's a mental state. So therefore, it needs to start in the mind. So it needs to start in our mind. So patience is not something that is like, just um, something that will happen externally only. And inside, we are still bubbling, bubbling with anger. That even our face are just completely kind of like, red, and then we're clenching our teeth, and then like this. But I'm not doing anything. Like that, not like this, That is not patience. Why? Because if that happens, we already lost the patience. What it means? Well, because patience, it's an actual work, it's an actual mental state to make sure that we don't fall or we don't allow our disturbing emotions to arise. That's what patience means. Patience gives us the strength then to work on ourselves, to work, on kind of like having the necessary or developing the necessary causes and conditions for our transformation. So patience in the Buddhist terms are like is everything that doesn't allow us to get angry. So that means that even if people abuse us and do things to us, we don't get disturbed. It doesn't disturb us. People can say whatever they want. Oh, you are very fat. You are very like this. You are very bad. You're a bad monk. That's what I kind of like. That's what I say to myself. You're a very bad monk, but doesn't disturb. You understand? So that is very important, that to understand where patience is actually practiced. And the way, if we actually practice within ourselves, therefore, the non-speaking, the non like telling something, the non-punching someone comes as a result, but not as the cause of patience, as we normally think. Oh, if I just don't punch this person in the face, and if I just don't say what I want to say, I'm being patient, right? Not like this. Because in the mind, you're still creating the sense of wanting to do that. So patience is a mind that it doesn't get disturbed. It's a mind that understands the way things are, and therefore it doesn't get kind of like disturbed by the situations. So it's a mind that also endures. I really like this word, really like, because nowadays we are missing a little bit of endurance. Endurance, enduring various difficulties and various problems and dissatisfactions, right? Because we're going to encounter all sorts of situations of harm and disturbance from others. So that means that we are going to have a lot of possibilities of being disturbed by our negative emotions, by our disturbing emotions. So here, the idea, it means that it doesn't matter what we encounter. It doesn't matter if our enemies or people, try to hurt us. We don't get angry. We don't get frustrated. We don't get discouraged. We don't become, and especially we don't become reluctant, as we say, to help them, to really want to develop things and mental states to help them. Yes? But if we're always losing our temper, or if we are always so kind of like making such an effort and holding ourselves to not harm others, how can we help them? Right? So that is not patience. That is not what Buddhism talks about what patience is. Patience is a very more kind of like peaceful mindset that is like, it's like kind of like if there is rain, if there is like wind and all of that is just there stable. A mind that is stable like a mountain, like boom, who is there? Jack and then Anthony. I think Jack and Anthony, they're gonna go with me. We're gonna go do a pilgrimage to Nepal, but Anthony is not gonna go, but Jack is gonna go, and we're gonna go and visit the Himalayas, the biggest, tallest mountains in the world, and you're gonna have that sense over there. That environment really helps us to really stabilize and make the mind, stable and firm like a mountain where things come and go. It doesn't matter. It doesn't bother us. That is very special, unique feature that we can develop, right? So we say in Buddhism that we have many types of different types of patience, but we have mainly three kinds of patience, within that attitude of wanting to kind of like not get affected, frustrated, discouraged, or anything because someone is hurting us or a situation is harming us. Okay? So one of them types of patience is not becoming upset with those who do harm us. That is very important. So how do we do that, right? So the first type of patience is about developing a mental state that will not become angry or upset with those that create situations that harm us. Because as we know, if we already have someone that is harming and that is angry and then is doing something to us, if we come with the same mental state, these is not like maths, plus plus becomes minus, or plus, no, plus and minus becomes kind of like no, I don't know, like this, it's kind of like it doesn't become, if we add two things, it's just gonna have plus and plus, we're gonna get more. So that means if you're coming with anger and we come with anger, we gotta have more anger, right? That's easy to see. That's not what we want. We want to be the ones who are going to decrease our own mental states. We're going to be the ones that in a relationship will take control, not of the relationship, but of our own minds. And if we take control of our own minds and we don't get disturbed and we don't get affected by our negative emotions because the harm is coming, then we can change not only our experience, but the relationship in itself. So it's not just about, people acting negatively towards us, but also, when people are nasty, treat us badly, and, like really like harming us. Yeah. So when people do that, even when people don't give us material help, or all of these, people insult us, that's very good. Wow, 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 very good when people insult us, or when people talk badly about us and we are getting a bad reputation. Ooh, that's very good when this happens. Best moment to actually get into understanding the mind, what, right? The mind of patience, because the first reaction that we're going to have is the anger, is going towards revenge, an eye for an eye, right? But then if we look into it and we really want to check, the mind of anger is just creating suffering for ourselves because we are agitated, because we are feeling that things, and the person is just living their lives and just having their own things, and we are in that kind of like mental state of suffering, and more and more and more and more and more and more. So that doesn't create any benefit whatsoever. So what it helps us, it's actually to start to understand where this person is coming from. Trying to understand, where this, if this person is coming towards harming us, is because they are under the influence of some mental state that is harming them. Like, for example, the mind of anger. We just said that the mind of anger hurts us. When we are angry, it's hurting first us. So, therefore, it's very important for us that we start really to check that if someone is angry at us, that person is suffering because that person is under the influence of their negative mental state of anger. So then we have a choice. What are we going to do? Put more fire, more fuel to the fire, more wood to the fire, and let this person burn of anger? What is the benefit of it? Right? What is the benefit of that for you? Because that person can do something even worse to you, even more harm to you, but especially what is the benefit for that person? Because that person is just going to create, that having that completely suffering experience. But not only this, it's going to create the habitual tendency and pattern to actually suffer more and more, right? So therefore, what we start to develop when someone harms us is the opposite mental state, the mental state that doesn't want to harm them but wants to help them to get free of that anger. Therefore, we start to really be creative, as I like to say. We become completely creative in wanting to help, and then in that moment we can do whatever we can, whatever it is in our power to help that person to decrease or let it go of the mental state of anger. Even saying I'm sorry, those very poison words that kind of like we have so much difficult to say because our minds cannot say that we are wrong and someone else is right. you know so we can say that even if it might not be entirely true on a conventional way, but we just say it because we're wanting to help that person, right? So that is the mental state of patience, that if we don't have that cool inside, that mental state that is not affected, not engaged into that kind of like negative emotion of anger that is coming towards us, right? That the person is angry at us, and then if we respond and we allow ourselves to be contaminated, to be controlled by our anger, forget about thinking in this way, right? So that is very important, that we start to actually understand, oh, okay, I actually can look it into a different way. And the way I look it into this situation is not only going to help that person, but it's going to help me because I don't get angry then. I don't go suffering from this mental state, right? So that is the power of patience. Patience is a very powerful mind, right? So then we start to enjoy. enjoy, as as Lama Zopa Rinpoche used to say, we start to enjoy suffering. So that means the other type of suffering is called enduring suffering. Mm. And let's say we are kind of like losing a little bit of our endurance to suffering. Yes? We are kind of like, if we don't have raisins for breakfast in our porridge, we suffer. If we don't have the half milk, whatever type of oat, macchiato, caramel, whatever, we suffer, isn't it? We start to suffer with such small little things that is not feeling, exactly what I want, how I want, that we have suffering. We're just suffering. So, and whenever something really problematic kind of like happens, you know, when a situation of disease or of like, or someone breaks up with us, a relationship problem, or or we are having financial problems, or we are having working problems, work problems, or anything like that, we immediately start to go down into a spiral of overwhelmed. We become overwhelmed, and we become to really suffer and get agitated and anxious, and then we don't sleep, and then we go to like pills, and then we go to situations and ways to get out of that discomfort. But there's a very wise man called Shantideva. He was a 7th century Buddhist Indian master, and he used to say something that is very special to us, because he used to say, if we got a problem that can be solved, there's no point in getting angry, upset, or worried. Just do what is needed to solve it. That simple. Nothing else. It's like, I was saying the other day, I started to check my bedroom, and my bedroom was very messy. I can see that Mary's there, and I was staying at Mary's house, and my bedroom was very messy, right? And then I said, oh no, my bed, me as a monk, I should be very tight and clean, and, kind of like this. And then my mind started to go into this negative, as I like to say, anger towards myself. Do you guys recognize that when we start to kind of like judge ourselves and kind of like beat up ourselves? So I started to do that. And then I said, oh, wait a minute. I don't need to go into Brazilian drama. I don't need to go in there. I can just kind of like, what do I need to do to make the room clean? Just clean the room. So then just clean the room. And then I just cleaned the room, and I did it very easily without, any drama, any heaviness. And it was done. Right? So that is exactly what Shantideva was trying to say to us. He was just saying, yes, if you see that a situation, that a problem can be solved, just do what's needed to be done to solve it, right? But he used to say as well, if there's nothing that can be done about the situation, why also getting angry? It's not going to help at all, because you cannot change the situation. So, for example, let's say if it's getting cold, and we have like warm clothing or something like that, well, then I start to complain. Oh, I'm cold. Oh, I'm this. Oh, and that. Well, just put your sweater, and, I'm not going to say shut up, but that's the idea, right? Just put the sweater and cut that mental state that is constantly trying to suffer, find some sort of problem when there's no problem, right? So that is very important, that we kind of like start to develop that. Oh, okay, oh, hey, okay, that is very important. I can do things. I can actually solve problems. The problem has a solution. I just need to do it. So that means that we start to have a more enduring relationship with sufferings, with problems, with situations that are challenging. We start to also develop, as I like to say, a good sense of health, a healthy sense of self-esteem. Yeah, we can just do it. We can, yeah, we can do things. And then with time as well, there's another way, to think about it, just to think about enduring suffering, is sometimes looking at what it could be worse. Like, for example, we kind of like, we banged our foot against the table, and and it was like, oh, it really hurts or something like that. But actually we can say, well, at least it's not broken, isn't it? Then it could be worse. That type of mental states, as I like to say, these talks are called Buddhist tips for life, right? So I'm giving you tips for you guys, for we to use it in our daily lives, and to say, oh, if a situation happens, and we can say, actually it could have been worse. So there is that situation now. It could be worse, and I could have kind of like done in a different way, but I have now the conditions to find a solution with the problem as it is. Hmm? So that is in some ways looking into problems and sufferings as having a good aspect to it as well, right? It doesn't mean that, like, and then we should enjoy. That is very interesting, but we should definitely enjoy kind of like going through, or when these understanding when these sufferings and these problems and these issues and these kind of like situations happen as a good thing, right? Actively kind of like looking in a positive way, because first, they allow us many times to see our disturbing emotions and negative tendencies, right? We can see them. That is one thing. Second, it helps us to be able to develop the good qualities of patience, for example, of compassion, of understanding the other person, of changing, my behaviors, or doing things as well, because some people procrastinate a lot. And I always say, well, it's just the procrastination comes from that feeling of like, oh, I cannot do it, or, just do it, get out of the mind, just do it, that what kind of like can help us. So that is very, 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 very helpful. But also, going through these hardships, and many, many times it teaches us so many lessons. It diminishes, for example, our pride, our arrogance. It also makes us develop compassion towards others and people that are going through similar types of problems. So, for example, if we are sick or we have a disease, we naturally feel a little bit more appreciation towards people that have the same like issues than us, right? Or when we get old, we really start to understand the pain of old age, the difficulties of it. Hmm? But because when we are young, we don't think about that, right? But maybe when we start, the other day I had a very funny aspect because I came home from there, and my mom had changed things in my room, and I couldn't find it, and I felt like, why did she move things? And I could feel that mind. It was very funny, like that mind of like, oh, that's how maybe sometimes older people, because I'm staying with my dad who's 87. That's how my dad sometimes kind of like feels, because he has even less plasticity or less kind of like possibilities of dealing with change because of his old age and all of that. And I could see the frustration that not knowing when things are, or with the unfamiliar or with the new things, how this can create some sort of like anxiety, right? So I thought, wow, when I get old, that feeling of like, but why is this change? Where are the things that I needed? Is gonna become worse, isn't it? So that really kind of like connected with my dad in a deeper way, if you think about it. You know? Now I have more patience with him when, if I change something or if he cannot find, because of me understanding. It doesn't mean that I need to wait until I'm 87 myself to connect with that feeling, right? We can experience it now. Does it make sense what I'm talking about? I didn't even ask, but you guys are very, very quiet today over there.
From mute.
Probably you're muted. Is there any questions or any comments so far?
Yeah, yeah. Anybody have a question?
Or opinion or whatever, or no, nothing.
Well,
Yes, someone
Perfect, clear.
back there.
the question I do, yes. So what do you do when that anger arises and that frustration in that moment?
When
It's
it's
pretty
already there.
powerful. It's very powerful. I mean, an explosion can happen.
Yes,
So how do you say, oh, let me transform this?
yes, yes. So normally, first what we do is that we punch the person in the face and then we cool down like that. No, I'm just kidding, not like that. Okay. No. Normally, the mind, even though yes, it is a very powerful energy, it doesn't mean we cannot change, because to be honest, it's just a habit, right? That's what it is. It's just a
It's a
habit.
strong feeling.
Very strong. I'm not saying that it's not, but it's just a habit. And just realizing that it is a habit, or having that understanding at the moment, already helps in itself. Okay? Just bringing that mind. But if it is a habit, we need to also create the habit of seeing it as per what it is, right? That means that we need to start understanding and meditating and contemplating and coming here. That is why I say that coming here on a Sunday and listen to this blah 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 from this crazy monk is very good, but it's not enough. We need to actually be able to bring that understanding into our daily lives. So the more we use in our own experiences, that's why I started to say, and really try to look, to kind of like create the habitual tendencies to actually engage our minds in this way, then these will help when, the in strong anger is there. But because that's why people ask me, oh, should I meditate? Should I meditate when I'm angry or when I'm not angry? What is best? And I always say, best when I'm not angry. Okay? Why? Because when I'm not angry, I have the mind a little bit more like relaxed or subdued. Therefore, I have more possibilities to train it. Hmm? So the moment that the strong emotion comes, even though it might come, it's going to be a lesser effect on me, right? And we go doing it, meditating, contemplating, listening, studying, applying to our daily lives. And like that, we go decreasing that mental state more and more and more and more. But one of the main things that you can do, it's always, but you need to remember, right? As you were saying, there's no way for you to remember if you don't recognize it, right? So you need to first habituate yourself to recognize it when anger is coming and when it's there, so you can decide what you want to do with it. So that is the first step. And once you can do it, you can just, there's so many things in the beginning. We talked about it a few weeks ago, or maybe a month ago, about anger. But just breathing first, just go back to the breath, go back to your body, and then you see it, the aspect, how the anger is transforming your body and getting in your energy. So that is the first step. And then you can start using, as I like to say, it's kind of like, it's like this. Normally we just see these things from one point of view, and especially when we are angry, we're just seeing something very narrow-minded. So we need to train our minds to see the situation with a little bit more of space, and then from different points of view, right? So that is what we can start developing within ourselves. And this will make that thing that looks so concrete a little bit less, and having less impact and influence in our minds. Does it make sense? Does it help what I'm saying?
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Anne, you have a question?
Thank you. Could you give an example for that about going into the process, of after you take your breath, training your mind from a different point of view?
Yes. So let's say that we got angry because, someone said something to us, like kind of like, or they didn't do what we, that is especially for my favorite mom, in Florida, Susan, Sus, because she has 4 kids. She has 4 kids, young boys, So, she asks them to do things like cleaning the room or cleaning the house and all of that, and they don't do it, right? So then, rah, anger comes up. Okay, so she kind of like gets into the mind of like, what I'm gonna do with these boys, you know. So if you think about it, that moment when the mind comes up of like of frustration, you know, because anger, it looks like, again, a big word, but we frustrated, we get kind of like, you know, impatience, we get snappy, many other kind of like nuances of anger, as I like to say. Okay, all of these are angry minds. So that when we first think about it, we need to realize that in that moment she's seeing those boys or this situation with that person. You know, we can use any situation with that negative mental states, and we can see in our body, we can notice. So that's why being aware of your mind is so important, right? Is the first step. But awareness in itself, or mindfulness in itself, is not enough. So once you get that, you need to decide to say, oh, I'm here, okay, so I can just breathe out, breathing, and I can just start making the body a little bit more relaxed. And then I can start saying, okay, but wait a minute, you know, they are boys, they are kind of like young, they have a tendency to be a bit more selfish because they don't understand yet. You know, you start to kind of like go around and talking to yourself out of the negative projection that the anger is creating in your mind. And you start to, as I like to say, uncover the cheating mind of anger. You know, you start to kind of like get and say, no, 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 I'm not going to follow you. I don't believe in you. It's not true. So you just start to kind of like go and say, oh, wait a minute, but that person is not doing that because they're bad people, because they're bad things or bad. It's because, you know, they don't have the tendency, they don't have the habit, and they have a different habit. And the different habit is just not thinking about others, right? So you just go from different points of view, and then you say, wait a minute, you know, like, okay, I'm not, if I do it for them, it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to help them. Or if I do it, it doesn't necessarily allow them to speak to me like this. You know, someone accuses me of this or that, whatever, I'm not going to just kind of like allow it, but I'm going to come with a mind not wanting to harm, but wanting to actually develop a way to bring, you know, maybe benefit to these people. So then my focus of self-defense, it's gone. My identification of personification, whatever. Identification with me. Oh, I forgot to say that I also invent words, okay? So this is Kalden's language lesson as well, here. So, you know, what we do is that we kind of like stop identifying with ourselves, and we turn that mind towards helping others. Then the mind becomes relaxed, open, and then we kind of like, oh yeah, it's okay. And then if we want to kind of like say to them, okay, I understand you guys want to play video game, but no playing video game until you finish, you know, putting like washing the dishes, you know, the dishwasher or whatever. Then that's it. You know, you have no, it's like me cleaning the room. Is that what it needs to be done? It just needs to be done. You just say to them, it's just some words, and then that, no anger, no story, no, I'm a bad mom, I'm a good mom, I'm a bad person, good person, bad monk, good monk, not like this. Just needs what to be done, and that's it. Right? So that is kind of like the clarity that the mind gives us when we are patient, when we are not under the influence of the negative emotions. And then we can be creative. You get like, you know, so many kind of like ways to kind of like that we can do. Or, you know, or they can listen to music or while they're doing this, or they can do, they like creating ways that they can enjoy, that they can see it, right? Or we can kind of like realize that this person who is accusing us of something is suffering, right? And we don't want to harm them, so we just develop the mind of compassion, of kindness, of love. Like, that's the idea. Does it make sense? And
Yes, thank you so much.
You don't
does it
mention humor. You don't mention humor very much. So is there a value of trying to add humor to bring peace of mind and sort of lightness to situations when you feel yourself getting angry?
Yes, but we need to be careful with humor, because humor can also be an escape, right? It can be an escape of actually dealing with the emotion. And like, it can definitely be a lighting up. And, you know, and I feel that humor is absolutely important when is it beneficial in the intention of using it, right? That's why I'm always making fun jokes, you know, and all of that. But I think that it needs to be tricky, because if not, humor can become a way to not deal with the situation and really saying what it needs to be said sometimes, right? So that is, I feel that it's kind of like, as we like to say, as we say in Buddhism, nothing is good or bad. Everything is depending on the situation and how we use it, the intention that we use. And the intention first needs to come with understanding our own minds of why am I using a certain way, right? It is because I am afraid that they're gonna be angry at me, they're gonna be mad at me, or they're gonna kind of like not love me, not hate me, you know? Like, oh, or it is to kind of like really help them to become a little bit lighter or better or something. That is the difference, right? Does it make sense?
Yeah, you can go ahead and ask next.
Yeah, while we were talking about this, I was thinking about a specific example that happened recently to me. And I
Yes.
was thinking humor as well, because I sort of laughed at myself saying, I just got so worked up about this.
Yes.
And I just wasted so much of my mental resources on being angry. It's kind
Yes.
of funny because it's a total waste of time. I've started a new job as a teacher, and I had a kid who was like doing his best to get me going. And
Yes.
I laughed. I was like, he almost got me, you know? But you
That
say
is very
humor
good.
may not be the best tool to use in a situation like this.
Well, this is very good, but actually the humor was the result, right? If you think
Right.
about it, it was not kind of like you did it all the work before, which was
Yeah.
to realize that you're getting angry, realize that you're getting pushed, like your buttons were getting pushed, and not reacting to it. So actually,
Yeah.
what you were practicing was patience.
Yeah.
That's what you did, right? And the
Yeah.
way you realize and you say, oh, I almost got it, you know? And then you kind of like you light it up. And then that was the way that your patience kind of like resulted in a way or manifested in a way to help that person, right? And yourself,
Yeah.
because you already were free from the anger. You didn't get angry. So that mind is exactly the mind of patience. When you don't allow yourself to get disturbed by the kid pushing your buttons, right?
Right.
Does it make sense?
Yes.
So that is very, so the more you do it, then the more kind of like the part, the mind, the humor becomes then a positive way or a creative way for you not only to kind of like rejoice in it for yourself and kind of like see the benefit and enjoy being patient, let's say like that, right? But also as a way to kind of like light it up so you can start helping that kid to say, you don't need to do this, or you know, kind of like what is going on so that you need to push my buttons in order to feel some sort of satisfaction, right?
Right.
Because that is, then it becomes a little bit of kind of like, yes, transforming that situation not only for yourself, because that is the thing about Buddhism. It's not about just not harming others, but if we can, we might help them and help in the way of decreasing their own negative emotions, right? Because that is the main source of suffering. The mind of attachment, of anger, of like, you know, jealousy or anxiety or whatever it is that is happening in the mind of that kid that feels that pushing your buttons is something, you know, that they need or like or enjoy. Make sense?
Yes.
Yes? Very good. Very good examples. Thank you. That's very, very good. Anything else? No? Any more questions? Yes.
Okay. So yeah, this is all in the same direction of thinking about anger. And I guess I don't know if this is going to come out clearly or not, but here's an attempt. I guess I'm curious about when you should just leave situations when you feel that anger is so overwhelming and that none of this 3D view is there. And I feel like the most compassionate thing to do is to just not engage. And
Best.
sometimes this is deep personal connections, but also sometimes in public spaces when people are being inconsiderate. I feel sometimes that feeling of vengeance is so strong
Yes.
that I feel like nothing will be, this person needs to be told that they're out of line,
Yes.
but at the same time, I feel like nothing but pure anger will come from this interaction. and it's
Yes.
better for me to just say nothing.
Perfect.
And sometimes I wonder, what the end result will be, a world where no one says anything to anyone, and that's also not good. And so I'm just curious your thoughts.
I think there's
Sorry for having my call on speaker.
I really like it. I really, really like it. It's very good. Very good what you said. It's like it's actually it's an incredible um mental state actually. As I was saying, when we decide to walk away but we are still angry, I said, oh, that is not patience. Yes, in a Buddhist terms is not, but it is a wise type of action, right? So it is what we can do it. And that is why the Buddha himself and so many teachings, and especially Shantideva, the 7th century Buddhist Indian master, he used to say, there's so many examples. He has a beautiful text called the Bodhisattva Way of Life. And he used to say, sometimes you just need to stay as a piece of wood. Sometimes you just need to walk away. Sometimes you just need to kind of like, like do whatever it is in your kind of like possibilities to just don't allow your own mind, right? So the first aspect of it is very important, which is the part of you realizing that suffering is not, to answer the first part of the question, is you realizing that actually if you engage or if you allow yourself to be under the influence of that suffering mind or that agitated mind, is creating a bad experience for you. So you don't want that. So you want to get out in whatever way is possible of that mental state. And if that means you walking away, even in the middle of the argument, I used to say that I gave that example when we were talking about anger. If you're getting an argument with your partner, you just getting angry and then you say, wait, I need to pee, I need a pee break, and then I just come back, and you go to the toilet, you just kind of like breathe, put some water, and then kind of like, okay, I love this person, I love this person. Okay, now I can go back, like that. Even if this is needed, so the mental state of anger is not affecting you first. That is very important. Very important. So we need to be creative and we can do whatever it is. Buddhism doesn't have kind of like a right or wrong or kind of like, it has only the intention of bringing yourself. You need to want to bring yourself out of that mental state. Does it make sense? Yes? So everything is good. So you walk away, you just don't say anything, or you stay as a piece of wood, or you start kind of like doing something else, whatever it is that is possible. Go pee, whatever. Okay? Anything is good. Second is the part that you asked about, but not saying anything also just kind of like allows that person to, is not good as well. Here, then I'm going to talk about something. If I want you guys to discuss about patience, but it's going to be brief, I hope. But it's a very strong, very important concept in Buddhism. That is, we do not change others. Okay? We do not kind of like directly transform others. We just said in the beginning of this, and we just talked about the power of the mind. And the mind is a subjective experience. And the mind is the creator of our happiness, and our mind is the creator of our happiness, and our mind is the creator of our suffering. Therefore, the person who we are trying to change, they have to transform their own minds. And to do that many, many times, the person needs to want to transform. And if we will come with that wish of wanting that person to be different and transform and all of that, normally and the person doesn't want, normally what is going to happen is conflict. Because you're imposing to them, right, a way of how they should be, which they don't think that they need to change. It's like a drug addict, right? If the person doesn't see the negativities of it, they will not want to change. Does it mean that then we just leave them to their selves and just leave them, to kind of like engage into their addictive, negative behaviors? No. We do it with that wisdom that we can do whatever we want. We can kind of like cut the money. We can bring them to the rehab. We can do whatever it is. But if they don't want, it's not going to have the effect that we are waiting to have. So that brings us a bit of a peace of mind in some ways. And stop with that control freak idea that we have that we can help really transform others. Right? Does it make sense what I'm saying? Yes? Okay, because that is very important, because otherwise, and this is going to go to the people who understand a little bit more about Buddhism, we would be saying that there is something and someone out there that can directly help us. So why they are not helping us? So why the Buddhas are not helping us? Why our guru is not helping us? Actually, they are. They are doing exactly what we are doing to the junkies and the people with addiction. They are telling us, look, you need to see those behaviors, you need to see those negative emotions, you need to see those kind of like habits that you have as negative, because until you don't see it, you're not going to transform it. That's exactly what they're doing to us. So that's what we need to start kind of like coming to the conclusion. Oh, a negative mind and actually acting in this way is my problem. I'm creating it. So I need to want to transform it. The same with others. Does it make sense what I'm saying? It's quite profound in some ways, but it's kind of like quite special if we understand that. Because we continue helping, but we don't have that heaviness of, if I don't do anything, then the person is not going to change and is not going to change. Yes, we might actually say something and it might not change the person anyway. You understand?
Yes.
Yes. Someone has a question. You have a question?
Yeah,
Yes.
I think he was talking about deep personal relationships and conflict and anger and walking away. And I guess if you continue to walk away and not engage, wouldn't that be enabling that person if you're not actually, I mean, to continue to walk away would be enabling if you're not actually dealing with things that are if there's conflict there.
Absolutely, but that's why it's also very important that we understand, because it's very good, because now our minds normally go to the extreme of like we will always walk away. That's not what we are saying in Buddhism. We are saying that in the moment that we feel that we cannot deal with it, we just walk away. But what we do then, we say, oh, I had to walk away because I couldn't control my mind. So now I'm going to come and I'm going to listen to blah, blah, blah of Kalden. I'm going to study. I'm going to do that. So the next time I can stay. And I'm going to not only stay, but I'm going to deal with the situation with a calm, peaceful mind. That is what we want, right? So because right now I totally understand what you say, and this is exactly the goal of that we want to achieve, is to address the situation, is to address the situation with a caring, compassionate, wise mind, not with a mind contaminated by anger, by attachment, by pride or anything like that. Because out of these mental states, the result is going to be dissatisfaction and suffering from ourselves and to the other person. But if we come with a compassionate, kind, wise mind, and that doesn't mean, as I started in the beginning, being a doormat, allowing people to walk all over us, but with a mind that has that understanding, so we can transform that relationship in a beneficial situation for both people. Make sense?
Yep.
Yeah? Okay. Okay, so now, yes, Rebecca?
Sorry, I took his question totally differently than she did. Because he said like in a public space of like seeing something that someone's inconsiderate. But I mean, don't you think, or do you think that if you approach something not from a side of anger, like without going down a political rabbit hole, you see like a lot of people now that are protesting, or like in certain communities, they're guarding people from getting kidnapped by ICE. So if you go there with a calm mind and feeling that you're doing something to benefit others, isn't that different than I hate these people and coming? Because you see, like when you see these groups of protesters, some people seem very calm and level-headed, whereas others are very angry. So I don't know. I took that to me. I don't know what the intention of your question was, but I took it to mean if we're just passive, then we allow things to happen when we could make a difference.
Absolutely, but I don't think that I answer differently than that. But I think that the most important is the mental state, right? And that is
Right.
exactly what we are normally not engaging with. We are engaging with the result, and we are engaging with believing that our way of thinking is better and the best way. And that is exactly why a protest can become a source of suffering, not only for ourselves, but the other people, right? Because we start to come from a same mind that started to protest what we are protesting for, right? We are protesting because people are doing exactly what we are starting to do exactly in the same way. So that is why it's so important to come with a mind that is actually understanding not only the suffering of the other group of people that we are protesting against, very important, but also understanding what I said, that we cannot necessarily going to be able to transform them. But that doesn't mean that we cannot get some beneficial results of it, as like not harming others, or like, changing the environment, or what, like, protecting environment and protecting things. Absolutely. But understanding that, right? Because otherwise we get lost in that. And that is not the goal of Buddhism. The goal of Buddhism is not to change the outside result. It's the result outside is the outside result is just a manifestation of the inner world, right? So what we need to aim for is the inner transformation, right? And we need to start with ourselves. So that is the most important aspect, right? But I totally agree with you. It's exactly what we can do, right? If we can do with a calm mind, like think about Gandhi, right?
Yeah.
In India, he just have a very relaxed, calm mind and say, that's what we're gonna do. Or His Holiness the Dalai Lama in 1959, he said, we're not going to fight the invasion of Tibet. Nobody's going to take one gun and kill anyone because we don't want to create negativity of killing others, right? Nothing like that. We're just going to continue doing our things. And I'm going to continue talking about, like the difference between, what is Tibet and China, and until today, talking about it in a very peaceful way. That means he hasn't has his country yet. Yes, but you just continue. You don't transform others' minds, right? So that, I think, it is more the aim, yeah, of the kind of like the process of developing patience and these positive emotions, right? And we can do that. We all have done that. So sometimes we need to really look into ourselves and say, yes, well done. I've done kind of like, I didn't lose my temper. But understanding as well, right, that we do lose our temper sometimes. We're still going to lose our temper many times, to be honest, because of the ingrained habits. But that doesn't mean we are bad people. That doesn't mean we are not evolving. Just that means that we need to continue putting effort and going again and again and again. That makes sense? Yes?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, sweethearts. Now you guys need to talk a little bit about patience. Okay? So you guys gonna the online people are gonna start running away. So the people over there at the center, you guys gonna come into groups, maybe 3-4 people, and you guys gonna discuss for maybe 10 minutes about patience. Okay, so how difficult it is for you to develop patience right now, or can you see how difficult it is, and how do you think that acting in a patient way can help you, in a certain situation? So these two things. Really try to give examples and say, oh yes, it's so hard for me, to have patience with my mom, my dad, my family, my days, my dad. And how can I see that actually not being disturbed can make me have a more creative, open mind to do things? And then you think about it. Oh yes, I could do this and that, like that. Does it make sense? Do you guys understand? Yes?
Yes.
Very good. It has been an absolutely delight to be here with you. It's been very, 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 very nice. I love these teachings. So I see you tomorrow on for our 7:30 meditation. And I see you on Tuesday. Sorry? Yes, and I see you on Tuesday for our 7 p.m. Teachings, and I see you on Wednesday for our meditation, 7:30 a.m., and I see you on Thursday for our Lojong mind training. We are finishing almost, the text as well, so we are almost there. So thank you.
And then
Yes.
Venerable Kalden, Medicine Buddha Puja next Sunday, after the teaching.
That
maybe
is
like
true.
45 minutes after. And then if you're interested in learning how to set up, and please join, because we have a puja committee together to make sure we can continue to host these. They're very beneficial for the center and for the world. So if you want to learn how to set up, it's not very difficult. Feel free to join us, and you could be part of that committee so we can continue to host robust events for the center's community. And then finally, there's a movie night on September 13th, 4 p.m. Dan and his crew are helping organize that. So
And
join
there's
us for that.
luck with that, right? Yeah.
And he's
Yeah, I
gonna
think
have
so.
popcorn as well. Okay, don't forget
I
that.
don't know about popcorn.
Yes, there will be
Okay.
pop.
There's gonna be popcorn, not pad thai, but popcorn. Okay, so you guys can have popcorn.
I don't care. It might be tactile.
We might
Okay,
have pad
everybody,
thai.
enjoy the
Venerable Kalden.
discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.
Oh, wait,
And-
no. It's the recording, so you might want to close the chat, I think. No,
Don't end, because
No, and then
so maybe Tall can be the